We're so happy you're all here. This is a topic we are finding ourselves very passionate about lately. A lot of long text chats at like 3 in the morning between me and Bria over the last, I don't know, how many months has it been? 11 for me almost. We should do a little intros for ourselves, and it's a nice small group, so maybe we can give everyone just a quick moment to introduce yourselves, and if you want to say like maybe two or three quick things about what brought you here, so we can kind of ground ourselves in the interests and the needs of the people showing up.
Yeah.
Oh, Bria, go ahead. Who are you?
You want me to start? I
I don't
think
know. You don't have
I think people
to.
might know me. I'm Bria. I work with the Alliance, one of the organizers for this event, and I have a 7-month-old and then a almost 12-year-old stepson, but I did not know him as a baby. So my husband has experienced a baby, and I have not experienced a baby, raising one. And yeah, as Justine said, like we were SDE facilitators, unschoolers, all of that first. And then we had babies. So it's just it's interesting to feel totally bought in. And then you have your first kid, because I think sometimes it goes the other way where you figure it out after, or they turn 5 and you're like, wait, I'm not comfortable sending them off to school. That doesn't feel right. Or they go to school and they come back. So it just feels a little different, me and Justine's entry point. And yeah, we're just really excited to kind of have this conversation with other people who are into this, because it doesn't seem to be as talked about as a lot of other topics. We can kind of pave our own path.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm Justine. I've been working as an SDE facilitator and reading specialist at the Village Free School in Portland, Oregon for 6.5 years. And yeah, it's interesting that, usually the child is the inspiration for a big paradigm shift into SDE for like the families I know. And for me and Bria, it was something else. Bria was just sort of born into the shift. And I found it as I stumbled into becoming a public school teacher, which is a funny thing to stumble into. But and yes, so I worked as a public school teacher in Brooklyn, New York for a few years. And I have a 10.5-month-old baby, and I think I've just felt since the very beginning that I'm not going to be able to make other mom or dad friends. I'm not going to be able to make parent friends unless they're like SDE people already. Because I mean, it's pretty like puritanical of me to feel that way, but I do I do think it's such like a deeply personal approach, and it's so hard to connect with parents, um even from the very beginning, who kind of aren't aligned or aren't open to it. So I was like, we got to figure out ways to create community in the SDE world in Portland for people with babies. So we've been slowly trying to find our people here, and um it's been really nice. And Bria and I, it was good timing. So so thank you all for coming. This is so important to us to like figure out, to compare notes, share resources, talk about the topics that are coming up already in these early days, and forge the path for us people raising little ones. So I want to give people a chance here to chime in. I think overall, if there's lots of like bubbling conversation happening and you're kind of feeling like you're waiting for your turn to speak, as far as like just moderating the conversation, feel free to type the word stack into the chat, to make sure that you get to speak. Otherwise, it feels like it could just be really easy, just kind of like unmute and chime in, ask questions as we go. And yeah, I just want to like pause here and give space for if anyone would like to introduce themselves and tell us what's going on for you, where you're coming from.
I'll go ahead and take you up on that offer. Hey, hi, hey girl, hey, Bria. It is so good to see all of you. My name is Karima. I don't have any babies anymore, sadly. Very sad about that. But I am enjoying sleeping in. I made a promise to myself. I hate to rub it in, but I made a promise to myself when my kids were younger. When they finally start sleeping through the night, I'm not getting out of the bed until 10 a.m. So that is now my I know, right? That's my new normal, right? Everyone in my life knows, don't call her before 10 a.m. because I will intentionally force myself to stay horizontal until 10 a.m. So I have 6 kids, and and they range in age from 24 down to 12. I'm a former public school teacher, turned homeschool mom. This is my 20th year of homeschooling. Can't even believe I'm saying those numbers. And we've been unschooling for the last 10 or 12 of them, something like that. I'm also the founder of the Genius School. But my main reason for being here in this conversation is twofold. One, selfishly, I feel like I'm an older mom. Like, I never thought I would be one of those moms. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, I'm a mom too. I might not have babies anymore, but I still have little ones who are still my babies. And then my second reason for being here in this conversation is that I want to listen. I want to listen to parents with the little ones. I want to hear what's important to you right now. I want to hear, there was what was going on when my kids were, 7 months and 10 months, right? And now I want to hear, what are you facing? And especially start, like you said, Bria, um, I commend you guys for starting out in this self-directed education way of living and being before you have kids. It kind of sets the ground rule, right? I came in it on the other side, and that was like, deschooling felt like detox, felt like I was losing my natural mind. It was crazy. Wish I would have known, wish I would have had y'all as friends back then, right? So yeah, I'm here to listen and to hear what matters most to you. And of course, to make myself, Bria, you already know, a resource, for those sleepless nights. I've been there. I had kids who suffered from night terrors, 2 of them. I didn't sleep for about a good 6 years. That's why I stay in the bed till 10 a.m. Okay, but enough about me. So glad to be here.
I'll go next. My name is Melissa. I love that. Thank you for sharing. I wish I could have had 6 babies. I feel very envious that you got that luxury. I have a 6-year-old, and she just turned 1 a couple weeks ago. Excuse me. And while I didn't know about self-directed education before she was born, a good friend of mine introduced me to Janet Lansbury, Magda Gerber, and Rye. And I feel like there's such beautiful connection between those. So before my oldest was born, I had this concept of respecting her as a whole individual, not interrupting, observing. And I think that has just like slid me into this world as I've learned more about it in the last number of years, of going like, there's so many different ways to do life, and being very curious about how other families are navigating those choices and options, and finding my way, here. So I certainly very excited to be with you all, and thanks for offering this session.
Thank you so much. Can you, you said Janet Lansbury, Rye, and what was the last one? Just so we can compile some resources that have been helpful.
Oh, sure. So Magda Gerber, Janet Lansbury is like the modern, she's very, I think, well known in that community. She has a podcast, she has books, she has an incredible website with resources, and she's the one my friend told me about, and I started listening to her podcast driving to work. But Magda Gerber was her teacher, and so you'll hear her name a lot too.
Awesome. Great. And down the rabbit hole you went.
Yes. Yes.
Hey everyone, we'll go next. This is our very first experience being in community around SDE stuff and unschooling. So we're super excited to be here. Thank you. I'm Sarah.
I'm Molly.
And we're married, we're a couple. And Molly is 24 weeks pregnant. So, and it'll be our our first baby.
Oh my God, this is so great.
Yeah. Yeah, we're thrilled and super excited to be here. We live in the East Bay, Bay Area in California. We kind of heard little things here and there about unschooling, deschooling, but really didn't kind of start to get more familiar with it until we stumbled upon Akila Richards' book at a community event, or community book event, or no, it was like a community fair. And so we started reading that together, and we're just very excited and moved by it in a lot of different ways. I think both the kind of call for interdependence and autonomy in family, sort of the healing components of it, kind of reparenting components of it, definitely the liberatory and kind of decolonizing aspects of it as well. So yeah, so I think we don't have a baby yet, so we have no idea what that will be like. So we're I think in a lot of ways we have no idea what our questions are and what our experience will be like and how we'll be relating to it and what our needs and wants will be. But we're just just excited to be here and see what comes up.
Yes, I feel like we were saw this conference and we're really excited about it. And then when we saw this session, it was like, I can't believe this exists. And so this is our first session actually. And I guess, yeah. Yeah, and I think the couple of conversations we've had sort of within our community about SDE have highlighted, I think, the need to connect with other people who are really doing it, because it's been challenging to kind of even describe and explain, and I can feel that that's going to be important.
Yeah, that's so important to all of us. You just named it, community. Finding the far reaches of it. Well, you have us now. So like Bria and I are often doing the thing where we're like, this thing is happening and I'm losing my mind. Am I still like aligned? Is this part of like what we're doing? Is this who we are? And we usually just spend a lot of time validating each other. So
at all hours of the night, as you'll learn, you need an all hours of the night partner.
Yes, we got you. All right, anyone else want to introduce yourselves? I'm loving this part.
I want to continue. Other than supporting this session, I always made fun between me and my colleague Nadia, my best friend that I opened our school with. Whenever a green school parent was pregnant and then had the baby, Nadia would take them and I'm like, I don't know what to do with them. Give me when they are 3. So I really do not know how to interact with babies just because I was not around babies. So it's with intention, this session. I'm not yet a mom. So I'm thinking that the only babies that I saw, they are the siblings of the babies in my school. I do not know what to do with them. I smile, they smile, but that's kind of it. And I will always be worried if a child is younger. And I was this summer in Summer Hill Festival of Childhood, and I had this almost 2 years old kid that was speaking in an English that I couldn't understand because this is not my language. This is my 3rd language. And without all the letters pronounced, I just couldn't. And suddenly, because I'm married with an American, suddenly in my mind, the thought was, at that moment, if we'll ever have a baby, I will not understand the baby. I was panicking because, oh my God, bilingual kid, I will not understand my kid. And then I kind of forgot that that's a language between people. And whenever I'm going to a foreign country and I don't speak the language, I will always find a way with my hands, my legs, my drawings, whatever. There's always a way. But in that moment, I just panicked and I asked a colleague to take over because this kid really, really liked to hang out with me in our junk playground. They just couldn't understand the word. So I have in the back of my mind, what if I'm not able to understand? What if I'm not able to not only understand the language that my child is speaking, but to understand the language that my child would speak? And on a different note, because this fear and concern is so strong, I never wanted to do education with kids younger than 3, because I'm like, I don't know what to do with them. That's a different type of education, because all the theories, all the psychology, the attachment theories, all of it, they are different in the first 3 years when all patterns are formed. And somehow I feel powerless when we talk about babies. So I'm in this session not because I'm recording, because I'm not able to record, so Bria is recording anyway. I'm here to follow the chat, to support anyone who needs, but I'm also here because I want to listen to this discussion. I don't have things to contribute to. I'm more a listener right now.
Hi, I could go quickly. My name is Dan. Hi, I'm here with my son. He's 3. His name is Sasha. And we're just playing. And hi, buddy. Can you hold on 1 sec? I'm just gonna talk for 1 sec. Okay, so this is my first time doing any self-directed education panel. My wife has been doing some research into it and is interested, and we're both interested. And our son is 2. He's our only child, and we live in San Diego. And my wife Paulina has been on some of the other panels this weekend so far. And yeah, it's been interesting. Like she currently works full time, and I'm staying home taking care of the baby during the week. And yeah, we're just trying to figure out what we're gonna do school wise, and then how do we want to raise our son. And I worked elementary school education for about 10 years. I worked as a teacher's assistant and as an outdoor educator for the YMCA up in Marin County. But now we live in San Diego, and yeah, I'm going to be kind of playing with my son, and I'll probably be running around and listening. Hopefully I can jump in as well and join in. So thanks for everyone who's been making this happen. So appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Victoria. I am in North Carolina. I work with my sister-in-law for, she started her a homeschool learning collaborative called Dandelion Learning Collaborative. And so that was kind of my introduction to self-directed education. And not long, right before moving here to North Carolina to work with her, we found out we were pregnant, and I now have he just turned 1 a couple weeks ago. I think, I remember who it was that said, yeah, probably close to the same age. So I was really excited to see this as one of the course options. This weekend is kind of my first individual introduction to SDE outside of the knowledge of my sister-in-law. So I was excited to see lots of resources that I could come here and gain and connect with, and then especially this session, since I now have a 1-year-old.
Anyone else? Thank you, Victoria.
I'll go. My name is Laurel, and I'm very excited about this one. I have worked with kids for a number of years. I currently work as a preschool teacher and a nanny. So I have a nanny share with 2 little 1-year-olds that I've been hanging out with for the past year. And I think coming at it in the world of a teacher, you feel like you have to do all these things, and slowly kind of breaking up that idea of you create the environment and letting kids be. And that's been a really lovely thing to learn how to do for babies, is being very specific about the environment, so you control the environment instead of controlling kids, and so allowing them to explore and be, and really not even interrupting when they're doing their thing, has been just a lovely thing to watch and to get to see them grow. So I am very excited to kind of chat with other people who have babies and work with babies and are creating these spaces for them.
Hi, I can go next. My name is Hajra. I am a mother to a 9 month old, and I was also coming from like an education background. I went to school for education. Like I'm a certified elementary teacher here, and I'm from New Jersey. And so I guess I was always kind of involved with like education advocacy, like while I was in school and college, and like very much saw myself as being like having like a very long career in public education. And then I like what ended up I don't know, like it was public schools are their own toxic mess, and I kind of hopped around. I recently, before I had my daughter, I was teaching pre-K for a couple of years. So like that's how I kind of got involved in like early childhood education and kind of seeing like how providing this kind of environment for young learners can like create like you have this like education for them in their own way. And so when I had my baby, I was kind of like, oh, I want to stay home and like do all these like learning activities with my baby. And then I think Melissa was saying Janet Lansbury and Magda Gerber, and I got into all of that. And then I was like, oh, we don't have to be doing all these things. Babies can learn and explore on their own, and they will like kind of like as long as you trust childhood, they will come and learn and grow and be themselves. And so now that's kind of how I found self-directed education. And I am, it is my first time being in a self-directed education community, so I am really excited to learn more.
It's amazing. Oh, I'm so excited to have all this community now. This is really, I've really been missing it, needing it. It's amazing. Anyone else? Any last intros? Bria, if I may, can I say something before we dive in? Cool. And I know that you and I talk about this a lot. So we have our feelings about things, we have our approach, and we have our like deep-seated values and all of that. But one of the things we don't think is helpful in any way is judgment towards parents. And we want to just bring all of what we're bringing in a non-judgmental way. We understand and we talk all the time about like the horrors of parental care in late stage capitalist society. And we are all being kind of like crushed down into meeting like the demands of our lives. And it makes us have to make certain choices. And, Bria and I struggle with these things constantly, and just you only can do so much. So we want to talk about that and really air that out, but also just let everyone here know that like we're not coming from a place of judgment for the ways that you approach these topics. We're coming from a place of like, let's find what works for us and keeps us connected in this way that we like this beautiful vision we have for our kids, as best as we can, while still coping with all the demands of the life we live. So with that said, why don't we dive into some of these topics that have been so up and up for us these last several months.
Yeah, and this is just the list Justine and I found. So if you have topics, questions, ideas to bring up that are really burning or not burning, if you just want to bring up anything, you're welcome to it, of course. Do you have one you want to start with, Justine? Is anyone like really speaking to you?
Oh, well, gosh, I was thinking about yesterday, I think, or so, we were talking about how lucky we are to exist in the SDE bubbles that we have, and how it's still not enough. And it feels like I feel guilt around that. Like my school gets by on a shoestring budget every year. We have like 7 staff. No one's paid nearly enough. And I was given 6 months of full-time paid maternity leave because I asked for it. And then the precedent had been set. and I'm on baby's now 10 and a half months, and I actually started my maternity leave a month before baby was born. And I feel like it's just absolutely like, it seems to me like unconscionable to ask a birthing person to return to any kind of work life before a year. And when a year comes, maybe I'll feel like it's up to 2 years. I don't know. But it's like, it's 6 months is, I mean, a friend of mine in Florida where I grew up is having a baby and getting 6 weeks. And she's been a private school teacher for like 10 years, and the school just gives 6 weeks. That's what they do. And I can't even imagine. So it's just, so we're all really stuck like dealing with this. And the SDE world, like the SDE situations me and Bria find ourselves in, come with a lot of like community support and privilege in this. And it's still really hard. So that weighs on me a lot. I don't know if you had some more to say about that, just like the way that our society is set up in America.
Someone put in that chat that Canada's 18 months. I think Romania is 2 years, 1 year, 2 years. Definitely America has crap leave, especially for the situation we're in. But it is really true. I think this relates to what you were saying before, Justine, that we have like idealistic views of exactly how we want to raise our babies and things maybe we never want to do with our babies. And then we have like real life when sleeplessness and money and jobs and partners and capitalism comes crashing down on us. And to balance those two things, like the vision and the reality, is really, really hard. And for me, that's like a lot of where all of this, even SDE for older kids too, but a lot of where all of this work comes together. Like, how do we balance what is true in life with our values? And like, what is the best decision we can make under these conditions? Yeah, 0 in US.
Yeah, and that's why we need each other so badly. I know that people in this chat are coming from all over the world. So yeah, just so you know, the maternity leave in America is 0. It is not federally granted to you.
Does anyone want to add on this topic or spin off to anything related?
Yeah, I guess it's making me think a little bit about, we're kind of thinking about this in abstract right now because we don't have the baby yet, but it feels like doing unschooling, deschooling requires caretakers, parents, to be able to spend a lot of time with your kids, with your babies, with your kids. If you're not sending them to school, for example. And I'm just curious, folks who are who have kids and are doing this, like how are you, and obviously we all have, or assuming most of us have to go to work, have to make money. I'm just curious how folks who have been doing this are like thinking about that, how you've found ways to make the space to be with your kids, or finding community so that you can help each other out in that way.
Yeah, I think part of me deciding whether or not to have a baby was contingent upon finding the community of like the SDE community I wanted to be a part of in order to feel ready for that. That was for me. So I kind of knew in an SDE space, I would be able to bring the baby with me. And so I do. Baby comes with me to the center every day. And honestly, some days it's just amazing. And some days it's mostly everything all at once. But sometimes when we're there, I feel so strung out and so overstimulated. I'm like, this is not actually the way I want to be. with my baby. I want to be like less overwhelmed because I'm both caring for the masses and caring for the baby at the same time. But I have a lot of internal stuff to deal with around like my responsibilities at work, and my coworkers try to tell me all the time to calm down about that. They're like, we got you. But yeah, finding your people is crucial, and people do cope with that in so many different ways. Finding you, and you have to like ad hoc a care plan together at some point. But trusting yourself to figure it out is important, because at the end of the day, it's one decision at a time. It's one, you figure out one situation, solve one problem at a time. And on the front end, it looks very like I have to figure it all out at the same time. But things do come like incrementally.
Yeah, I was gonna hop on that and share a little bit of my experience. I'm, I guess, very fortunate and blessed enough that the work I'm doing is with my sister-in-law. So we are very much a family business. And her kids are old enough, are the ages of our program. She's built the program around her own kids. And so now that I'm joining, we're kind of looking at how does the program change with now younger kids coming into the mix occasionally. And when he was born in last February, I was able to take a little bit of some leave time. I had about 6 weeks, and then like it backed right up to the spring break. So I had like an additional 2 weeks. But even before that 6 weeks was over, there was like one day a week where she was like, I'm there on my own. Her husband usually works from home, but like he had to be off site that day. And so I was going just like one half day a week. And it wasn't even that I had to be in our schoolhouse with the kids. She just needed me on site. She's like, you and the baby can just come hang out at my house. I just need you on site. So there's a second adult on site. And so it started slowly, like you were saying, it comes incrementally. So it started slowly that way that I was able to just bring him with me, and it was a lot of baby wearing. And it really helped my journey into becoming a mother, because I was able to continue to spend so much time with him. I didn't really have to ever spend a full day away from him until he was like 6 months old. So it really helped me to bond with him and stay bonded with him. And then our breastfeeding journey too, it helped that last longer. And so now as we went into this past August, we did decide to send him to a part-time daycare for 2 days a week, so that I could go and I could focus on our work for 2 days. So our schedule is not full-time. So I'm not working full-time. So I'm being a mom part-time, and I'm doing the work we do part-time too. And we're also looking at as we go into next year, there being 1 or 2 days that the baby comes with me, and what that looks like, and creating the spaces with the other kids, and it's really neat the times that I do bring him to the schoolhouse with the other kids. They all are like, oh, hey, baby, they surround him with love. And then they're like amazed at how he's growing. They're like, I saw you a month ago. Look at his hair. I saw him just a week ago, and look how much he's growing. And so it's really fun to see some of the kids that don't have little siblings. They're getting to experience a little sibling in a way. So we're looking at next year how that might look, that he might be there for a full day with it or more. You never know.
I cannot write as fast in the chat as you, Bria, but I do not remember the name of the program, but there is a program teaching empathy to kids, and they are bringing babies, and they are not having a huge, like, let's say curriculum or design. They just interact with the baby. It's and the results were amazing. I think I could find it. I do not remember it so well in order to recommend it or something, but related to what you said, I think SDE center would need an older person, like a grandfather or grandmother energy there, and the baby energy.
Yeah, intergenerational community is one of the blessings of the SDE setting for me, for sure. Like I think all our kids are like in the age mixing stuff, like all the kids really do like thrive in that. At my school, we're 5 to 18. We call ourselves a school, but we're an SDE center. And yeah, it's just it's so cool. Like we'll just be sitting in a space together and like people just kind of gather around us, and it's always different. It's always a different group. Sometimes it's like all teenage boys who just come sit down to play and hear about the latest developments in the baby and all this stuff. So it really does tap into like a nurturance inside of all our brains and gives people an opportunity to grow in that direction. Yeah. What's coming up for you, Bria?
I just feel like, I mean, I think a lot of the situations described already are like, we have centers where we can bring the baby. And I recognize, as you said before, that's not true for everyone, but also just like constantly assessing, like my baby is a different baby week to week and her needs are different like week to week or month to month, and just constantly checking in, like, is this setup working for now? Like maybe you thought you'd never try daycare, but maybe your baby actually really wants to try daycare. Like maybe they need other people, maybe you need a break from each other, or you have to because of work, and that's okay. And maybe after 6 months, you're like, that didn't work at all. And that's also okay. So, like, decisions can be temporary if you're in a situation where you have like space to try things out and quit them if needed. It doesn't have to be like, we're going to daycare, we're setting this is forever. It can be like, let's try something and see if it works. Just like Victoria said, we're going to see how it works to bring the baby 1 day a week. Maybe it will be amazing and you'll bring the baby 3 days a week, and maybe it will be terrible and the baby won't want to be there. We don't know. And it's okay for things to not go well or for things to go amazing and to adjust accordingly.
Emergence.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I know I would be overstimulated if I like brought Nova to VFS or another center every day. And I'm overstimulated at home because she's not stimulated enough. So it's like, I'm like, can I please bring her to a center? But then I also know at the center, it's like, can I just bring her home? So there's just different things that are needed, and babies are hard regardless, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, something's coming up in my mind that you and I've spent a lot of time talking about. It's not on our list, but I did just add it at the bottom there. Can we talk about our thoughts on gendering, assigning a gendered pronoun? Because in English we use mainly gender binary pronouns. Is this something that interests people to talk about? Because Bria and I thought about it quite a lot. A little bit, yeah. Yeah, I guess because some people feel really strongly about using a gender neutral pronoun for babies, and Bria and I kind of talked about this, and we were like, yeah, we're just gonna pick the pronoun that goes with the baby's biological features, and we're going to raise them in an environment that breaks down the binaries around them, so that the choice, when the choice is made by the child, it's welcomed, it's invited, it's appreciated and acknowledged and respected. If they so choose to be referred to by a different pronoun or in a different way outside of the gender binary. And this is kind of a polarizing issue we have found. Some people are really adamant about choosing they, them. And what I feel about that is that it's also a choice. And we make a lot of choices for our babies that they can't consent to. And we can't really know if they're aligned with who they are. And so it takes so much time for them to be able to express to you. And, I've even talked to a lot of the trans youth in my school about this and asked them, I'm like, I struggled with this decision. Like, what do you think about it? And there's so many trans youth at my school, and it's an environment my child is going to be growing up in. So I'm like, this is like already, this is so different from the way a lot of kids get to be raised in like a space of acceptance and appreciation for gender expression. And they were all like, yeah, whatever. They're like, whatever, as long as like when they tell you, then if that's cool, then that feels cool to me. And so we use whatever pronouns to refer to the baby. There's no wrong one, but just because we're doing so much that goes against the cultural norms, it's like literally the like utterance of these words, like at this stage, does that need to be like at the forefront of our focus, or should we focus more on like cultivating an environment that is going to make this child feel safe to express their gender identity when the time comes? Yeah.
I think you hit on something there that applies to a lot of areas of what we do with our babies, and just like this whole idea of raising babies in the first place is that they can't really consent. Like they'll scream if they hate what you're doing, but they're not going to scream if you call them by a pronoun that isn't their pronoun because they don't understand it yet. And another one is like putting babies' photos online. You and I approach that differently, and we've talked about that. But the baby can't consent either way. So it's like really hard to know how to make these decisions because in SDE you talk about informed consent for the child, but babies can't have informed consent yet. And I think that's like a huge theme around a lot of decisions and a lot of like difficulty raising babies. I'm just wondering if this comes up for anyone else or is a worry.
Yeah, I find this really interesting because I think this is such an interesting topic to talk about when you talk about babies. Is we want a right or wrong answer, and a lot of times there isn't a right or a wrong, and it's taking the information you have and making the best like loving decision that you can, but then like having grace within that, because saying like even if I'd done the other thing, that wasn't necessarily right either. And so with something like this, it's like, I love that you guys have talked about like, well, I asked other people, I went and informed myself, I know youth who are in this community, like I don't have the answer, like let's ask someone else, let's like inform ourselves and then make a decision based off that, and then being willing to change later and not saying like I committed to this thing, I cannot change. And gender is such an interesting one. I work with a lot of families, and I had a parent say to me the other day, because the little baby has not much hair, and she's like, everyone calls her a boy all the time. It was like very upset by this, and I thought like, why is this something that matters, or why do we care? But we like culturally very much care. And so just interesting thing that came up recently. And then I've recently been looking at a lot of children's books, and when you look at children's books, even when they're animals, they're generally gendered as male. So you read like The Very Hungry Caterpillar, it is a he. You read Dear Zoo, it's he. And that we just kind of have this, that it's just, that's what our children learn from a very young age. And so that's been something that I've been curious about. And if anybody else notices, or what you do in reading and changing things to just be like, gosh, we're surrounded by this idea that like, when it's not really more neutral, it's always male. And even when I'm reading books with children in like the 2 and 3 year age range, it'll be a character that's never gendered, and then they'll say, well, he is doing this or he is that. And so it's very interesting of kind of the things that they pick up from what we surround them with, and how we kind of have the ability to change culture, whatever we call them, but like just by kind of the things that we use with our children.
Yeah, thanks for sharing all of that. It is so interesting. I asked for gender neutral clothing, without like lots of words and things, when I was expecting people were going to just be giving me things. And gender neutral clothing are all like mask clothes. No one's going to bring you like a pink dress if you say that. It's really interesting. It was interesting to realize that. Yeah, and how much how attached we are to the gender binary, and how much we're assigning value to it. And
my sister didn't want pink for her daughter. It was not a gender issue. Romanian doesn't have the same pronouns as you, doesn't also have the same culture, neither with opportunities or challenges. We're not there yet as a society, but she really, really, really wanted to stay away from blue, baby blue and baby pink. And she asked everyone to bring clothes that are neutral. Baby is obsessed with pink. Obsessed with pink. Like, and spend probably 1.5 years in an Elsa dress. My sister would wash it during the night when the kid was sleeping without the dress. Because, yeah. I'm wondering, though, how much pressure does a parent want to put on themselves, respecting all the principles, all the values, and how much pressure do we put on the kids for the same reasons? I mean, making the choice of identity, it's a huge choice, no matter what identity means. I like this or that, where I am this or that, or even meal approaches. Like, how much pressure are people comfortable with putting on themselves, keeping into account that what I hear from the parents in my school, I hear constantly that everyone has an opinion on their parenting. Everyone has an opinion on how to do stuff. So if everyone already puts pressure, and SDE is a choice that breaks family patterns, so you'll most of the times people that choose SDE are, at least in the people that I know and in my school, are criticized a lot because they are ruining the future of the child. So they already face challenges and pressure. How much do you put on you as a very young child, not necessarily parent? Does my English make sense? I hope.
If I could hop in and just address that, Sonia, that was really, really on point, that pressure. And so the pressure is there no matter what you do. No matter what you do. Home birth, hospital birth, C-section, natural vaginal delivery. Doesn't matter. Breastfeed, bottle feed, cloth diaper, Pampers and Huggies from the store. Doesn't matter. The pressure is there. The opinions are there from other people. Do you let them cry it out? Do you let them co-sleep? There's always going to be opposing voices that feel passionate about the opposite thing that you're doing. And then, we ourselves may start off doing one thing as parents, because we've done all the research, we've stayed up all night, we've watched our girlfriend who had a baby 6 months ahead of us, and we're like, oh, I don't like that. Okay, let me try something else. And so we do all of that. And there we are, right? It's 2:17 in the morning. That's the time that my night terror people would wake up every single morning, 2:17 a.m. on the dot. And so there you are in the middle of the night, right? And so you're sitting there, nursing the baby from the left to the right on one of them cluster feeds, and you got your internet going and you're researching. And then 6 months from now, you're ready to try something different because it works for as long as it works until it doesn't work anymore. And then it's the giving ourselves the grace to be okay with, I did that and that did work, but now it's not working. And believe it or not, I'm actually going to do the opposite of that now. And that's okay. And so, because, look at me. I said I would never unschool. Oh my God, that was like unparenting. That was irresponsible. Who would ever do such a thing? Here I am, right? The world's biggest champion. But it's removing that pressure. I found that the thing that removes it is just to live in the moment. The moment. Like, what time is it right now, Eastern? 1:57 Eastern. Live in 1:57. Because by 2:03, you might be in a completely different situation. With 6 kids, we'd be doing one thing, and then somebody would be like, Mom, such and such cut themselves and they're not stopping bleeding. Okay, well, stop that. It's time to now go to the ER. It's just like that. So living in the moment is the thing. And even now with older children, the same thing happens. That's what I'm saying. The pressure didn't go away, right? Because now that I have teenagers. And so now I'm doing the same thing, right? I'm like, are you guys okay? Anything you want to talk about? Is there anything that I'm not doing that you would like for me to do? Am I doing too much of something that you don't want? And the kids are like, Mom, like, go turn the chicken, it's burning. Like, well, we're good. Like, can you just, finish making dinner? And so it's, because you want to do it all right, right? And you don't want to mess them up, and you don't want them, in therapy when they're, 32, because you didn't do that thing that they wanted you to do Tuesday, afternoon. You didn't do it. And now their whole life is messed up. And it's your fault. Nobody wants that. So that's why we do all this research. That's why we attend these sessions. Anybody else out there doing this SDE thing with babies? Because I think I want to do it, but I don't know anybody else doing it. I don't want to mess this kid up, and I want to be responsible for, paying for the counseling. That's why we're here. And I know that. And someone tried to tell me that back in the day, but guess what? I didn't listen. And so, I continued on in that thing that I thought was the right thing at the time, only for me to come to the realization to do the thing that I said I would never do. And now having adult kids, like I said yesterday in one of the comments, on your best day, after you have done all of the right things that you know to do at that time, when that kid gets older, they may say, Mom, I hated that when you do it. And you offered them consent. Wait a minute. Before I did that, I told you, I sent you the website, sent you the TikTok and the Instagram reels. We all talked about it. We had a meeting about it. We voted. We discussed it. We laid out the plan. You consented and said yes. I checked in with you every 5 minutes to make sure it's what you wanted. And now you're saying you hated it 30 years later? Mm-mm. So my point is, that really did happen. But anyway, my point is relax. And the relationship is the thing that matters.
I would relax, but I'm in therapy for 10 years now. And whenever I find something, it's like, oh my God, I will never be a parent. I cannot live with this thing in my mind. Well, I have a special context, like my mom is a narcissist and my dad is a bipolar, borderline alcoholic. My family was not nice. And I know I'm fucked up in a way, but also when I'm looking at people my age, our parents were also fucked up by the culture itself. I'm sorry for the recording and my swearing in the recording. But I'm looking like some of the messages that our parents were using, all parents were using, and all of them, they are toxic. And me thinking like, oh, this is my thing. I learned this is my coping mechanism. And then my therapist goes deep with me and I'm like, oh, not mom again. Come on. And the thing is, I know that our kids were our younger people in this world, our younger colleagues of the world, they all will be in therapy. I just hope that my impact will not be a lot. And what you said now about 30 years later, it was one of the topics reached yesterday in the panel. And I keep hearing it around me. We had a kid in our school that really, really, really wanted to go to a conventional school. And the mom was obsessed with self-directed education and didn't want to go because it was like, I will break your heart. We are with you from the beginning and so on and so forth. And I'm like, dude, if we ever had the same message over the years, was listen to the child. But when, like, I'm wondering, what do you do when it will come back as a backlash, or how do you approach that? And I'm saying, especially because I'm seeing my husband, older children. I'm a stepmom, new to this, so I'm trying to respect at a distance, but come close. And I'm like, how many of my choices will impact these children? Like how? And like it all comes to that pressure. But also when I'm hearing myself in therapy, And I'm like, oh, come on, it cannot be everything about parents. Like,
Yeah. Oh wow, Sonia, I feel you so much. There's so much here. I think perfection is a trap for starters. We are not going to be perfect. I think a little self-deprecation goes a long way in parenting when you can be like, ooh, this kid, I mean, I say this to my partner as well. I'm like, I really need you to have someone in your life you can process me with. But is it me? Because I lean into that a lot in my own life with my relationship. So we can't be responsible for breaking every cycle, for seeing every blind spot, for knowing all the things about ourselves and the ways we're going to impact young people. But what we can do, I think, that is in support of the kind of person we want to be and the kind of impact we want to have, is to cultivate internally a sense of surrender. And exactly like you were saying, Karima, like I should like listen to you talk for like another hour or so. But the presence, trying to shut off a little bit of the noise and staying present, because like it's not going to be perfect. No day will be perfect, but to be present with what's happening and able to react in the moment and know yourself, to know yourself really deeply and study that. I think that's the deep work of parenting too. And finding the ways you can become boundaried from the outside and those voices and the ways people are going to criticize or have their opinions, like to become boundaried around that, almost like in non-reactive to it, just staying present and trusting yourself. And someone, I think maybe it was Adrienne Marie Brown, it was one of the brilliant like writers of our time, who said something that shifted my brain forever. And it was, it's so easy for us to look at our parents and see all the cycles they didn't break for us, but we can look at our parents and see the cycles that they did break as well. And I know that's what I need to, like, I need my kid to know that too. I want my kid to know that from me, to hear that from me and not have to find it out later, reading, maybe stumbling upon that. And I also want to say that like therapy is many things. Many things can be therapeutic, and it's not a sign of a problem. I think it's essential and it's a sign of health when we find ourselves in therapeutic settings, whether that's a dance group or a like like a guided psilocybin journey, whatever, like all across the spectrum, like things that are therapeutic for us are good. And I want my kid to be able to experience therapy in therapeutic settings and have a safe place to process and to have someone who can support them in that way. So yeah, I do just want to say that I think we look at it, we're like, oh gosh, my kid's gonna end up in therapy. And I know what that means. I know what that's like. I know what's behind that. And I'm also like, I think my kid's gonna need to be. I'm like, I'm gonna help you find that. Because I'm your mom, so you're gonna need some help. But yeah, it's so deep. It's so much deep. All the layers of self-knowledge and self-love really come up.
I will ask anyone from this group one more question. I have it in my mind. I have it in my mind because I'm losing myself to many things. And I'm thinking that with fear, that first years of motherhood or parenthood, it means another human being is depending only on you and you are not yourself anymore. How do you make space for the new you to be alone without the child or alone with the child or together with the child? Um how do you take care of yourself? And I'm saying this because I'm losing usually myself to depression. And in for example, now I'm sick for this is my 5th week since I have this cold, and I'm not able to do sports. I'm not able to work on my full capacity. So my coping mechanisms, the good ones and the bad ones, are not there anymore. So I'm thinking that in the first 2-3 years, when the baby is depending on you, like his life is depending on you, what do you do for yourself? And I'm addressing the question to anyone.
I know for me, I'm still figuring that out. um, I've found little places, and my husband works full time, so I am the primary caregiver. And when he was first born, and then my husband, took a little bit of leave, but then he was back to work. And then the baby came with me to work. And then even now, the baby goes to daycare 2 days a week, but those other days he's primarily with me, and I'm the one that does drop off and pick up to daycare even. And I'm still figuring out, how do I keep myself, and how do I keep finding the me, the me that I was before becoming a mother. And I know one of the things was, like, I worked out a lot. And I would go to cycle classes or things like that. And then with being pregnant and moving at the same time, like, I lost some of those things. And I'm just finding some of those again, and I'm figuring out how to do it with the baby. I've got a hiking pack now that he can go in the hiking pack. He loves going in the hiking pack. So we're going hiking. I'm finding hiking as the thing that I can do with him, and gives me that fulfillment of being in nature, and that fulfillment of moving my body and using my body, and it gets both of us outside.
Yeah. I also think giving space for doing things without a baby. And I'm going to say something right now, and there might be husbands in the room. There's no not primary caregivers in the room. My husband works full time. We have a second child who's 12, and he goes to school full time. And when he comes home, he takes the baby. And if your husband or your secondary caregiver is saying they can't take the baby because they worked all day, you need to really push on that, because you worked all day, you worked all night, you have worked your entire life. You will be working when you hand that baby over, because mentally it's so challenging. So, I mean, I know these are conversations you need to have in your partnership. I don't mean to insult anyone's partnerships. I'm just saying, like, especially if it's a male secondary caregiver and they're used to all these things that society tells them that they just work and they're not responsible, or whatever messages we get covertly, like, push on that. You worked all day with that baby, just like them, and, like, swap what that work looks like, and take your hour to go skiing, or, well, you can't take an hour to go skiing, skateboarding, or play basketball, or dancing, or whatever it is. Like, find those moments, and then let your partner find those moments too. But I just think we need to push on our conventional ideas of what it means to, like, work all day and then come home to a baby and share care.
Yeah, well, a human baby is so obviously a priority and needs, and having that high of something that has that high of needs really raises everyone's awareness to all of the needs, and they're in competition with one another. So it's like, which one of us is more tired right now? Like, which one of us? There's a lot of, I felt like there was just no avoiding the mental gymnastics of keeping score, and we can be aware of it, and we can, like, all this, but it's like, it's so real, because you're working off of an essential, you're working on with, like, the bare essentials of what everyone has to offer. Everyone needs to be giving their all. And just like Bria was saying, like, when you if you're a primary caregiver and all day you're alone or working on this, doing this alone, when your partner is home, that's the end of you being alone in it. It's now a shared thing. And I've learned a lot from the book Fair, or from the talk about this book Fair Play, which is waiting for me at the library. There's a film and there's a deck of cards, task division. It's a whole thing, but Fair Play is the name of that book. So I want to share that. And as far as keeping connected to who you are, I'm a creative person. I'm a musician, and I'm in a band. So it's like I have a band schedule. And that has tethered me to my soul so much. And like he's in a band as well. We both have a rehearsal every week. I have gigs like every other week. I have a gig, it's like put it on the GCal. That's what I have to say about that. You are still yourself. And I was saying this last night, how I was talking to my bandmate. It's actually very trippy to become a parent, I find. It's like you're living in a dissociated reality, because you're like, whoa, 1 second ago I was like, there wasn't a whole other person like that I built cell by cell for my body, and now there is. So it's very trippy, but you are there still. Like it's still you. And this idea that you're not you anymore, I think people feel such a huge and monumental shift happen, which is real. They can't find where they are anymore, but you're in there still. It's you. It's the same you it's always been. And there's this brand new circumstance, and you are like just reacting, and you're in this new environment. So it's like things are coming up that you maybe don't even know about yourself. You're learning more about yourself every day. But what you do will have to be more intentional. The time has to be set aside. You have to have a shared GCal. And you got to put it on the cal to make it happen. Be like, this is the 4 hours this weekend that I'm going to do whatever I want. Like, and this is the 4 hours this weekend you're going to do whatever you want. And yeah, I just find that it comes down to intentionality.
Yeah. And I'm glad you said, like, we're together in this. You're not alone in this when they come home, because I got on a soapbox thinking of other people's relationships where it's not. It's just like the mother is the default, and that really, really, I think, harms women. But I was just messaging my husband the other day when he went to do homework at 10 p.m. and I was like, we're both drowning this weekend, but I'm so glad we're on the same team. Like, we're here to say, do you need a minute? And neither of us have any space. Like, we both need the nap, but one of us is going to take the nap, and then one of us is going to take the shower, and we're going to support each other in that. So yeah, like, we are on the same team. It is you two or whoever, like maybe you have a bunch of caregivers supporting you. It's all of you against the like problem that is time or self-care or whatever it is.
And the isolation of like not living in community. If you have the opportunity to live with people, someone maybe isn't sleep deprived and can like hold the baby. But that doesn't tend to be the way things are set up anymore in Western cultures. So a lot of them.
Yeah, I find this topic really interesting. I kind of come at it from the other side because I often provide care. I am a caretaker and have been a nanny for a number of years. And so I understand how expensive care can be and how that's a really difficult thing. And so just saying like, take time, just like go like do something for yourself is like a hard thing to say. But then watching people build community and make connections with other parents and caregivers, I've seen work really, really well, where some people in my neighborhood, they a couple of the moms have gotten together and they're like, this one has the kids on Monday and this one has the kids on Tuesday and this one has the kids on Wednesday, and they all kind of are able to take time without it being something that's financially impossible or something that doesn't work. And so really finding that community and finding things that work, because there are those things there, even if it's maybe not having as much support from a partner or having as much family around. Going out into the world and finding those people can be such an important thing, to be able to take that time and say like, I have to be a person outside of this. I have to take care of myself so that I can take care of other people. When I am so tired and so stressed and so anxious and have all this going on, I cannot be that provider for someone else. And so kind of finding those opportunities and those moments. And then I kind of love what Victoria said of like, well, I got this hiking backpack and we go out hiking together, and saying, I think I'm going to speak from American culture. We have this kind of culture of, if you're the parent, you need to like sit at home with your baby and you need to only do baby activities. And if you're not building DIY pom-pom sorters, like you're not like helping them learn. And like, we just have to like sit there and only do baby things, when really like them going to the grocery store and touching fruits is amazing. Like them playing independently at the park while you do your workout and you like model like taking a moment, like is amazing. Like taking time to just do regular life things, even with kids, I think just models that like we all live life and they can have really amazing learning experiences in there, instead of just being like, oh no, if I'm not like sitting with them and talking to them and educating them, doing all these things, like I'm not like this amazing, lovely parent, when really like they just need to go be a little bit and they need space to do that. And you can kind of take some of that space to be like, okay, well, I'm going to be over here doing this other thing and modeling some really lovely life skill for you.
I think this is like a practice of a lifetime, what we're talking about here. And I think, you know, it really, to me, it really transcends having children, because I don't know that I was super intentional about my life before I had my first daughter, but it really highlighted for me when she arrived, like even more so became more challenging, you know, it like really highlighted the challenge of it. But I love the conversation, and I sit here and I just go, gosh, there's no silver bullet. There's no just easy answer to this, because it really is so dependent upon like your situation, your relationship. Do you have family nearby? Do you have like a great support system? You know, what are the things that are meaningful to you? Can you even like identify those anymore? Like it might take time to kind of figure out what is like that priority, or, you know, the thing that used to be really important maybe isn't anymore. I know. And so I just sort of am like sitting here thinking about it. And, you know, my husband always feels, he's a cyclist. So he's, you know, will request like time to go do like a long bike ride. And he feels really guilty when he leaves, but he feels more guilty because I don't ask for really time to do things outside of maybe like a couple of things that I've now got scheduled. But, you know, I think even, you know, even when you're apart, and I think Bria, yeah, what you were saying is true. Like it's easier when you're kind of outside the house and you still kind of maybe have that pull, but boy, is it stronger when you can hear them. You're like in a different room or on a different floor, you know. You think that's funny. But I don't know, I just kind of wanted to reflect that this is something that I kind of dealt with before I had my children, but boy, is it, you know, it is something that I think I'll be living with and thinking about and kind of playing around with for the rest of my life, even when they're grown, you know. So I would say the note about like talking to your partner, I was thinking about that, and I can only speak for like my relationship, and we're able to have, you know, some really nice communication. But I was also thinking about how like what a great practice this has been for being in communication with my girls, as far as, you know, like maybe learning new patterns and making requests of him and just being in conversation on so many different topics we never had to talk about before they arrived. But it's given me like great practice, and I think some great skills to then be able to use like with my girls. So maybe for anyone who's thinking about partner communications, I think there's a lot of applicability in strengthening that with obviously the world around you, but even inside of then your family and your kids. So something that popped in my mind. Yes, the guilt is hard.
And yes, it is a work of life. Nothing makes me feel like I have to be intentional about my time more than having very little time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really gave me focus on making some big changes to my life when my older daughter was a couple years old, and I saw the way life had been structured no longer worked. And it really hadn't been working, but I wasn't kind of present to it until she inserted herself, and I was like, oh, no, it really doesn't work. So yeah, very interesting.
The kids show you all the holes and all the hardest things about yourself and all the things you haven't been confronting. At least they do for me.
Mm-hmm.
And they make it both harder and easier to confront them. It's like, it's a gift, but it's really hard work.
Yeah. My cousin said once she's raising two young girls, and she's looked at me and said, you know, you just end up treating them the way you treat yourself. And I was like, okay. It's so real though. And so in those moments where you're like, this is, here we are. It's like the final hour. It's like, what are the ways you treat yourself? I wanted, we have so many things on our little list here that I don't think need full conversations, but we're coming down to the last like 10 minutes. And I just kind of want to like run through a few of these things, because if that's okay with everyone, because Bria and I have like found ourselves drawn towards certain approaches that we have talked through a lot. And when you're parenting a young child and like you're facing these questions all the time, like you're gonna have to choose what works best for you. But I do kind of want to like talk quickly about the choices we've made and how we've just like sort of found our SDE selves in them with like the practical things, like kind of what you're saying, Karima, about like, let's talk about what's up for parents right now. We talked about gendering babies and stuff. We touched on posting photos online or not. Bria just chooses not to, and I do. On my Instagram, I treat it like a scrapbook, and I don't have family anywhere near me, and like my people are scattered all around the world since I've lived in so many different places, and I just like, this is where they are, and this is where they're gonna see my pictures, so I choose to post them. And we have like sometimes the same value around it and sometimes a different one, and I think it could be cool. Just, I don't know if that feels helpful to people. We can run through a few of these things like sleep, feeding, all that, the practical things. Does that feel good? A good direction to go to wrap up? Yeah, Bria, how you feel? Cool. Bria and I did a lot of research on sleep. I read a book maybe in my early 20s when I was recommended a book called The Continuum Concept. And I can't even remember the author now. It's so long ago. Of course, I gave it away to someone because I loved it so much. And now I don't see it every day, so I don't remember. But the continuum concept, the main point is that like, we're Homo sapiens. So like a Homo sapien comes out the same everywhere in the world and for as long as they've existed, pretty much. So it's like, what is that creature expecting? What are the like instincts? What are they going to need? How are they going to express their needs? And it's really just back to basics. And they expect things. They expect skin touch. They expect to be nearby a breathing, moving, noisy person when sleeping, because it gives their sensory system like these safety checks while they're sleeping. So Bria and I researched this a ton, and we both chose to bed share. And we have great book recommendation if anyone's curious about that. We also learned a lot about the fear mongering around it and the risks involved and how to minimize those. And Safe Baby Sleep by James McKenna is one of the books that we both read, and that was really helpful. And we learned that, and I also took a baby course that I shared a lot with Bria by the Upbringing sisters, Hannah and Kelty, who actually are now parents at my center. Upbringing is like an Instagram account you can find, and they collaborated with another person to do a baby right from the start. It's called a baby course, and they talk about how everyone, like research shows, everyone bed shares at some point or another. It's just that in America, there's this culture of abstinence around it. Like if it's not safe in every single scenario, we're just going to tell people never to do it. And so people are afraid to talk about it and talk to their healthcare providers and stuff. But in other countries, it's obviously so much the norm that it's like people are educated how to do bed sharing. But it's worked really well. I love it. My baby is starting to get very big and like very strong. So I'm starting to be like, okay, I'm getting like kicked in the head every once in a while. Maybe we're gonna like introduce something new, but figuring out what works is a daily practice, just like we were saying. But yeah, that's something me and Bria both found ourselves drawn to.
Yeah, I'll also say because of my particular anxieties, I actually co-slept and it lasted like 2 weeks. And by that, I mean, we had like a crib attached to the bed. And so a separate surface for the baby. And then it lasted 2 weeks and she decided she hated that and needed to be right next to me. And then we went through different iterations. So it's like, it doesn't have to look one way. If your anxiety says, I need the baby next to me, or your innate like desires say that, great, figure out how to do that. If it says I need the baby in the room but not near me because I'm worried about that, like there's so many ways. And it's just funny to think of me 6 months ago or 7 months ago when I was like, oh, it's great, she's sleeping in her co-sleeper, this is amazing. And then like 2 weeks later it all went down the drain and everything has evolved since then. So whatever decision you might make right now, also know you're going to make decisions on the fly. Like it's going to change. Maybe your baby can't sleep next to you. I think there's a small percentage of babies that sleep really badly next to their parents. I've just heard this from parents. It's a parent perspective, so who knows if it's actually true. But I've heard some parents like, I woke my baby up all the time once they turned 6 months and they needed to be in a different room and that worked way better. Not my experience, but it's just like what you decide in the beginning also will evolve constantly. Yeah.
And circumstances will just be given to you to deal with.
Yes.
You don't know what kind of situation you're going to find yourself in from moment to moment. Like my baby was very big. Our cloth diapers don't fit anymore. He's only 8 months old. He's grown out of them. I wanted to nurse this baby for as long as possible, and I was given a baby with a tongue tie and oral restriction and could not latch, and I pumped my brains out until I couldn't anymore. And so we had to switch over to formula. It's like you don't know what you're going to get handed. The surrender, the presence, the self-trust, all that stuff is always going to be there. So like cultivating that does get you through like the like what the fuck is happening moments. Yeah, we had totally opposite situations, but also a lot of feeding struggles, and feeding is a full-on struggle sometimes. I couldn't believe it. I had no expectation that it was going to be so intense for me.
I will say for folks who are having babies or thinking about it, I feel like everything we just said might be a little scary. I think there are some things that you can like get upfront information about, like before the baby comes out, look into a lactation consultant if that's a thing in your country or area, look into breastfeeding information, look into safe bed sharing. If you feel like you might end up bed sharing, you want to have that beforehand rather than rushing to do it before. Yeah. And just have some of those things, and also know you can do them in the moment, and you will, but knowing beforehand gives a little bit of a safety net. Like Justine gave me so much feeding information because she had struggled, and I had just had a better, I think, safety net when that came, and I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah, there are so many. I swear Instagram saved me in a lot of ways. There's community on there that when you feel isolated and it's the middle of the night and you're like struggling with an issue, there's an Instagram influencer for you. Like, do not be afraid to lean into that, because moms, as you can see, me and Bria and like other parents here, like there is I find a really big resource return that comes back to me when I'm able to help someone not experience the struggle the way I did, like unguided and unsupported. So yeah, this is like an energy thing, and like the community of parents, there's like, let's help each other. Mm-hmm. So reach out.
We're going to get closed on automatically.
We're going to get closed on. Do we want to leave contact info or?
Yeah, there's also the directory on the site that we can put our own info into. So you'll be able to find me on there, and probably Justine as well. And then all the resources will be collected too and shared.
Yeah. Especially you, Sarah and Molly. We're here for you.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Reach out. There's a lot more to talk about, and for here.
Awesome. And just really appreciated everyone's reflections and questions. They are also beautiful. So thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks so much, everybody. Thank you, Bria.